Thank you very much. I'll be very brief. I just wanted to thank the Luzerne County Historical Society for once again putting on an excellent program during Mining Heritage Month. I want to thank John and Dave and Nicholas and Mark for speaking tonight, and especially to Mark for setting this up. It is our penultimate program this month. We had 16 planned. As you may know, some of them were canceled, some moved to Zoom, some were postponed till later dates. But luckily we have this one tonight. The very last one will be January 30th, this Sunday, at the Lackawanna Historical Society. It'll be a play, a live theatrical performance entitled For the Least of Them. It's a play about the life of Monsignor John J. Curran. And Monsignor Curran was known as the mine workers priest from the Scranton area originally, then settled in, and it had St. Mary's Church and Holy Savior Church in Wilkes-Barre. A personal friend of John Mitchell and President Teddy Roosevelt, with whom he helped settle the 1902 strike. That'll be a play that was going to be live. Playwright K.K. Gordon wrote it. Scott Rave is the single actor. It's one act, so one person. And the director is Art Walsh. That's now going to be broadcast, just as a few days ago, on Electric City Television. Electric City Television is local television in Scranton. And you go to YouTube and search Electric City Television. Look for the live stream button and you'll be in. It was going to be live with cheese and wine afterwards, and it was good. It still is going to be an excellent play, I have no doubt, but it's not going to be what was originally planned. So with that, I will just turn it back and say thanks again. I'm really looking forward to this evening myself, and this is why we do Anthracite Heritage Month. We have a tremendous heritage. We're teaching about it. We're learning about it. We're cherishing it. We're commemorating it. And tonight's going to be one of those dimensions, researching it. So thanks again, and I'm looking forward to a wonderful session.
Well, thank you for that, Bob. And we're always happy to be a part of Anthracite Heritage Month. So, you know, we're grateful to be here. Welcome to the couple of people that have snuck in the waiting room while we just got started. We just did the intros. You haven't missed anything yet. Likewise, as we go through tonight's program, if you have any questions, type it into the text chat. There's a button on the bottom of your screen. It says chat. It will go right to me, and I will be curating them at the end for a Q&A. So even if you have one popped in your head and you're worried you're going to forget it or anything, don't worry about it. You could punch it right in. Nobody else is going to see it. It's just going to come up on my screen. And as we go through at the end of the night, we'll go through them and answer as many of the questions as we can. So now when we did our little walkthrough, John, you went first. Do you want to start us off tonight?
Sure, yeah, I could do that. Thanks, Mark.
You should be able to share your screen. Everything should be set up.
Alrighty, yeah, let me try that.
I just wanted to remind John to speak very loudly because Richard Healy's tuning in from England, and we want to be sure it carries over there.
Okay, all right, I will do. Okay. Everybody can see that all right? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the coal mining resources at the Anthracite Heritage Museum. We have a lot of coal mining resources at the Anthracite Heritage Museum, as the name would imply. So, but I'm really going to focus on our archival collections. We have approximately 2,500 cubic feet of archival documents at the museum within its archives. And in the library, we also have approximately 18,000 publications. And those are books, the publications. And then we have another 17,000 periodicals in our library as well. So we do have a significant amount of library and archival material. I'm not going to get too, well, actually, I'm not going to talk too much about our three-dimensional artifacts that you would see in our exhibit hall. We do have a program on the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission website. It's called Argus, and you can go onto the PHMC's website. There's a tab that says Museum Collections, and you can actually search through some of our collections that we have in the museum. We, like the Luzerne County Historical Society, have been putting our artifacts online so that the public can view them. And so far, we have put approximately 2,500 of our three-dimensional artifacts online. That includes photographs and descriptions of the artifacts. But tonight, I'm really just going to focus on our archival collections, and I'm going to focus specifically on 6 of our really more comprehensive archival collections. These 6 collections total about half of the items in our archives. The 6 collections are the Ace Coal Company collection, Anthracite Board of Conciliation records, East Sugarloaf Coal Company collection, Jetto Highland Coal Company collection, Penn Anthracite Coal Company collection, and a John Hennemus collection, which is actually a photographic collection that contains about 1,500 images taken by John Horgan Jr. of the Hudson Coal Company workings from 1910 to roughly 1928. There's some Watson Bunnell photographs in there as well that continued after John Horgan Jr.'s death in 1926. So the first collection, going alphabetically, that I'm going to really talk about today is the Ace Coal Company collection. And the Ace Coal Company itself was founded in 1937 in Blakely, Lackawanna County, Pennsylvania, and the company was reorganized in 1979 under the same name. So the collection that we have spans 1937 to 1979, and it was donated to the museum in two separate donations, one in 1978, right before it was reincorporated, and then one in 1980. And the records themselves consist primarily of bound and loose accounts of sales and costs associated with the mining of anthracite coal. So there's a significant number of administrative records, production records, and corporate financial records. The in addition to those records, you can also find records from some of its associated companies. They're not subsidiaries, but they are affiliated companies. Maybe they had some type of shipping agreement with them, or another type of mining agreement or royalty agreement with those companies. And those companies are the MSB Coal Company, the Maselli Coal Company, F&W Coal Company, and the F&G Coal Company. So this Ace Coal Company records really comprises about 50 cubic feet of records, so there's a lot of records. One example here I have is a run of mine ledger. So this would be an example of some of the production records. So I'm going to try to zoom in on this, and I hope everybody can kind of see it. And so the run of mine records, as an example of this, you can see by different dates some of the people or other coal companies that were involved helping to mine coal, and then the Ace Coal Company was also processing it in this case. So there's just a small example of what you would find in this collection. The next collection that I'm going to focus on is actually a relatively recent donation to the Anthracite Heritage Museum. It was at the Indiana University of Pennsylvania, and in October of 2021, they transferred it and donated it to the Anthracite Heritage Museum. The Anthracite Board of Conciliation, for some of you who aren't familiar with that, was created as a result of the strike of 1902. It was created as a part of the Anthracite Coal Strike Commission Award, and the Anthracite Board of Conciliation was really supposed to be, it was supposed to mediate grievances, future grievances, to prevent another large-scale strike like the strike of 1902. It kind of, in a way, did do its job, except for a brief period of time in the early and mid-1920s when there were several really large-scale strikes. And then, in the early 1940s, there were also some strikes as well. But for those, except for those two periods, the Anthracite Board of Conciliation really did do its job in mediating grievances to prevent large strikes. So these are the records of the Anthracite Board of Conciliation. And the collection itself comprises about 115 cubic feet of records, which can be divided into 3 different series. The first series is the Anthracite Board of Conciliation files, which also include photographs of various Anthracite Board of Conciliation members. And those photographs date from about 1903 to about 1950. After 1950, we seem to not have any photographs of the Anthracite Board of Conciliation members. But we also include in this series with the executive session minutes. So all of the executive session minutes from 1903 until 1975. Series number 2, a part of this collection, is the grievance material, which is then broken down into 2 more sub-series. So we have card indexes to the grievances. So they're filed, the grievances would then be filed by subject and then by company. And then we also have the grievances themselves, which include a complete set of grievances from the first grievance ever filed and adjudicated by the Anthracite Board of Conciliation all the way up to grievance number 8,458. And here's an example of one of those grievances that you would find. What I have here is grievance number 4751. And you can see up at the top, you can see that it says what the number of the grievance is, the date it was filed, so November 12th, 1936. It'll tell us the grievance number, and then it usually says certain contract miners or certain contract, whatever the group of employees was, their mine that they worked at, in this case, Park Number 1 Slope, the colliery, Park Colliery, and then versus it would usually be the coal company, in this case, Lehigh Valley Coal Company. They don't name the miners on the cover. That was supposed to provide a type of, I guess you could say, privacy in adjudicating these. But inside, the subsequent pages do list the parties that filed the grievances. So you can find them by name. There is no index to people who filed grievances. It's only coal companies and subject matter, what the grievance was about. So within the grievance itself, you have testimony from both sides. So in this case, it would be the certain contract miners and the Lehigh Valley Coal Company. They provide their evidence, they give their testimony, and then the final pages of this grievance would be the decision of the Anthracite Board of Conciliation. Also within this collection, we also have the third and final series, the Anthracite Coal Strike Commission testimony. We have 51 out of 55 hand-typed volumes of the Anthracite Coal Strike Commission testimony within this collection. we have the other 4 volumes in another collection. So our entire, so between those two, this collection and the other one, we actually have the entire Anthracite Coal Strike Commission testimony. So if somebody wants to read through about, I think it's somewhere around 5,000 pages, there's a lot of good information about what went on during the Anthracite Coal Strike Commission there. So just a brief history, though. I'm talking about the Anthracite Board of Conciliation. It was a bipartisan committee that was established. So there were 3 people who were representing the miners, so the union, the UMWA. There were 3 people who represented the operators, and there was 1 umpire who was appointed by a federal circuit judge. So that's how they got some impartiality with the Anthracite Board of Conciliation to mediate a lot of these grievances. The next, I guess, collection is the East Sugarloaf Coal Company records. Unlike most of our other coal company records, the East Sugarloaf Coal Company doesn't really contain a lot of administrative, financial, or even payroll records. What it does contain, though, are a almost complete set of lease agreements and rent agreements for the patch town of Stockton, PA, which at one point in time the East Sugarloaf Coal Company did own. And it's kind of interesting, those lease agreements and rent books go from about 1896 to 1954 when the East Sugarloaf Coal Company started to remove some of the buildings for strip mining. But just some examples here. We have a lease agreement on the right. I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit. And you can see they detail who the lease was to, for which house. In this case, it was house number 89. And when the term begins, which was March 1st, 1941. And then the rent, $6.50 per month. We also have the rent books. So just because they signed the lease doesn't mean they were paying the rent. But in this case, the Mrs. Dill family in 1953, house number 96, they were supposed to pay $7.50 a month, and they did. Here we go. So we have the rent books from roughly 1904 to 1954. And they do detail every single month and who was paying rent and who was not paying rent. So it gives us a good kind of comprehensive view of what, how a coal company was administering their, patch town properties in a sense. And I've researched some of this stuff, and there are some startling discoveries that I have made, but I'm not going to get into that right now. But it's also good for genealogy. So if you had anybody who lived in the Stockton, PA area, you can really see who lived in what houses and how much they were paying, that kind of stuff. The next company that I'm going to focus on is Jericho Coal Company records. So the Jericho Coal Company records really include checks, receipts, rates, correspondence, leases, and royalty statements relating to the operations of the Jericho Highland Coal Company of West Pittston and Wilkes-Barre, PA. So that's where the coal company had their offices, but most of their operations were located in the Hazleton area, particularly around Freeland and Eckley, Pennsylvania. And at one time they did own Eckley, PA. So there's a good amount of records there. There's administrative records, which include general correspondence from some of the corporate heads. There is production records, as well as payroll records, and even stock, capital stock and regular corporate stock records. Also represented in this collection. Yep. I don't know what's happening here. Also represented in this collection is the G.B. Markle and Company records, as well as John Markle Company, Jetto Tunnel Company records. We do have some Hazelbrook Coal Company records and Jennings Incorporated and Raven Run Coal Company records in here. They were subsidiaries or predecessor companies of Jetto Highland Coal Company. And this corporate record archive, that's about 60 cubic feet of records. So we do have a good comprehensive holdings for the Jetto Company records. But our largest holdings, archival holdings at the Anthracite Heritage Museum are the Penn Anthracite Collieries Company collection. The Penn Anthracite Collieries Company collection is approximately 600 cubic feet of records. They include administrative records, financial records again, and payroll records, as well as some engineering records from the Penn Anthracite Collieries companies and its subsidiaries. This collection was donated to us over a period of 11 years. So from 1994 to 2005, we collected this collection, and it is pretty much ours in total now. Some of the things that you will find in this collection include subject files dating from 1902 to 1985, various board members and management operation files, administrative files of Penn Anthracite Collieries Company, but also of its predecessors and subsidiary companies, including the Elk Hill Coal and Iron Company, South Penn Collieries Company, the Penn Anthracite Mining Company, the Thuron Coal Company, Trevorton Colliery Company, Von Storch Collieries Company, as well as the Von Storch Ice and Fuel Company, Leggett's Creek Anthracite Company, and the Gibson Fuel Company. And those records date to 1919 to 1951. In addition, I'm going to try to zoom in on the top here. So up top we have some longer boxes, and within those boxes we have a lot of mining maps. The mining maps include mine maps, blueprints, and lot plots for operations at the Kapaus, Von Storch, Ontario, Harry Taylor, Leggett's Creek, Johnson, Rushbrook, Riverside, Sterrick Creek, Store, and Raymond Collieries. Just in case you're interested to know, we do have a lot of mining maps. So the last collection I'm really going to talk about, and I'm going to kind of talk about it real briefly here, is the Hennemus Collection. It is designated for us AC 80.17. It was donated to us in 1980, and it contains about 1,500 photographs taken by John Horgan Jr. and around 100 taken by Watson Brownscombe Bunnell. The photographs date circa 1910 to 1928, and they are largely of Hudson Coal Company workings, including the Marvin, Greenwood, Laurie, Oliphant, and Baltimore collieries. And the primary purpose for John Horgan Jr. to take these photographs was for insurance purposes, to document new construction and the mining operations of the Hudson Coal Company. There's a lot of, between 1918 and 1922 and 1923, the Hudson Coal Company built a lot of different breakers. The Marvin, Laurie, there were just two examples. And John Horgan Jr. Pretty much documented the whole construction phase of those breakers. So we do have a lot of photographs that he took of those two breakers being constructed. So it's very kind of a useful tool for that type of research. We also have a lot of photographs that he took of individual miners just doing their jobs around the various mines of the Hudson Coal Company. We have other resources here at the Anthracite Heritage Museum. As I mentioned before, we have a library. The library contains mine inspectors' reports from 1870 to 1972. We have a large composite of miners' certificate test ledgers, which date from 1906 to 1999, and they're very good for genealogical research. However, the bulk of those ledgers are really only for or center on the areas from Wilkes-Barre into Duryea, PA. We do have 4,600 miner certificates, which we do have in a database, and it's alphabetized. So if somebody knows if they have a ancestor who was a miner, we may have their certificate. We could look it up and give them certain information. And we do have Anthracite Health and Welfare Fund applications and Anthracite Health and Welfare Death Benefit applications from 47 to 50 and 47 to 60. Those are from a UMWA local union in Drifton, Pennsylvania. Some of those might be restricted, however, because of medical information or social security numbers. So, but it doesn't mean we wouldn't allow access. We just have to redact certain information if somebody wants to see them. So the Pennsylvania State Archives, I have to give them a little plug. They do have some anthracite coal mining related resources there as well. Amongst them, the Pennsylvania Coal Company records, and I'm trying to think. They have Pennsylvania Coal Company records. They have Susquehanna Colliery Company records, and they have a trying to think.
Lehigh Coal and Nav, John.
What's that?
Lehigh Coal and Nav.
Yes, yeah, Lehigh Coal and Nav, and they have Lehigh Valley Railroad records too. And I'm sure you know, Nick, they do have a lot of railroad related records there too. They have other bituminous coal mining records there as well, but I'm not going to get into that. Contact information if anybody wants to make an appointment to do research at the Anthracite Heritage Museum. You can contact me via the email here, and we can kind of make arrangements, so you can ask me if we have something. There's a good chance we do. So, and I could try to help you. All right. And thank you.
Well, that was wonderful, John. Thank you. That Penn Anthracite collection takes me back. John had me working on that when I was very wet behind the ears and was a young intern up at the Anthracite Museum.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of good memories looking at that.
Yes. Yeah, they were good memories, Mark.
So we'll keep rolling right along. As I said, keep getting your questions in. We already have a bunch, both ones for John and more general ones for all of our speakers, which is wonderful. So just keep on coming with that. I'm getting all of them and keeping them here. Nick, would you like to keep us going here?
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Nick Zmijewski. I'm the archivist for the Industrial Archives and Library. And before coming there almost 6 years ago, I was the archivist at the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the collections at both institutions, starting with where I am now. Most of what we have cataloged and know about are trade publications and other library material. We're a relatively new archive. We were founded in 2015. So our collections are constantly growing and we're constantly trying to catch up. The library is in very good shape. Virtually every book, magazine, journal, whatever, is cataloged and available on WorldCat. So we do have a number of trade publications. This is from Coal Age. These are great both for the articles. You'll see on the right here an article on Reading Anthracite Oak Hill Breaker, and also for the ads. On the left is an ad for lubricants, but it shows the Hazleton Shaft Colliery. And I picked that one out in particular because we do have a couple of drawings from Hazleton Shaft that were donated by an individual as well in our collections. We also have a lot of books on mining engineering. Mike Korb, who I'm sure many of you are aware of, as he winds down his consulting and things of that nature, donated a massive library of mining books to us, as well as a large number of books that were once part of corporate libraries of Bethlehem Steel, US Steel, and Alcoa that deal with coal. So we have a lot of stuff on mining engineering, including the ever-present ICS technology books, as well as various other monographs. We also have a smattering of books on the history of coal, coal mining, and uses of coal, particularly in industrial settings. We have a large, because a lot of our library was used for research and development purposes and technical purposes, we have a lot of scholarship on the science of coal, the utilization of coal, how these companies were looking at breaking coal down in anthracite coal and using it in various industrial processes. So that's another big part of our library. And what I've been showing you is just a smattering where there was a large enough clump to justify taking a photograph. In addition to library material, we also have several large unprocessed collections, one of which is from a former vice president at Bethlehem Steel who's in charge of corporate communications. And within that is a lot of material relating to Bethlehem Steel's ownership of the Panther Valley Division, Lehigh Coal and Navigation, today's Lehigh Anthracite. You'll note the aforementioned Mr. Korb is pictured there on the cover of Anthracites, which was Bethlehem Steel's newsletter. We have probably 8 or 10 years worth of those, covering the late 70s, early 80s, and the activities of that division. Yeah, and it's a mix of civic engagement, news in the workplace, as well as talking to miners about and other employees about various hot button topics of the day and getting their opinion on things. Be a good resource for genealogists and those looking to research slightly more modern material than what John had. We also have a smattering of documents from the St. Nicholas colliery, Reading Anthracite, that was collected by various individuals before the buildings came down. Some of that is digitized and will hopefully be cataloged in our new digital asset management system relatively soon. We just signed the purchase order for that, so we'll be getting that going to make that available remotely. Since one donor did already scan his. This is for sand being shipped to the breaker for use in cleaning process for anthracite. And you can see the waybill and the chemical makeup of the sand. So there's some very interesting things about what they were buying, what they were doing. Most of this stuff dates from the late 50s, early 1960s. And there's maybe 6 or 8 cubic feet of that. And we are actively pursuing a number of other anthracite-related collections. So don't be surprised if the Industrial Archives and Library makes a much bigger splash in anthracite research in the next few years. There's a lot going on, and I do think that very soon will be a major resource for those looking to research anthracite coal and the valley in general. I'm going to talk a little bit as well about the collections of the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania. Since what I have at the Industrial Archives and Library isn't very graphic, I thought I'd pull a number of pictures from my former employer related to various collections they have. One of their largest collections is from the Vulcan Iron Works in Wilkes-Barre. Much of it shows either builders' photos or drawings and other documents related to the construction of steam, compressed air, and various electric locomotives for use in the mining industry. And here's an example of a few different mine lokis from various eras. And these mine motor images are in here because I got a phone call a couple of years ago from a gentleman. He said, "Hey, Nick, I just got this Vulcan builder's plate. What's it off of?" And so I went to the reference material, and while we didn't have a photo of the exact mine motor, I think his was E237 or 238. These picture E235 and 234 from Lehigh Valley Coal Company. They were all built on the same order. So I happen to have these images because I had sent those to him. So in addition to building steam locomotives, they built electric mine motors. Various views of the same one here. And here are the blueprints, drawings, and other records related to the purchase, the initial purchase and build of the motors on the previous picture. And you'll note on the lower left, there are all sorts of pencil notations on the cover sheet there. That indicates various parts sold to the coal company for repair, as well as how the mine motors moved around various Lehigh Valley anthracite properties. The same goes for steam locomotives, and the yellow sheets are all the specs and options, will often contain correspondence. Unfortunately, none of the Vulcan stuff is well described on their finding aids yet, so you do have to go in and look for it, but it's definitely worth it. Vulcan also built various other equipment, and occasionally there are some pictures of that, including some hoists here, as well as a photo inside of the works, which is kind of neat. And then every once in a while, they would send a photographer underground or to workings to get photos of their stuff in use for various advertising and trade purposes. So there's a couple of images of Vulcan equipment working underground, which I ran across while looking for some other material, and thought those were pretty neat. In addition, a collection that's very well described are the Baldwin Builders photographs. These are all online. You can download low resolution ones right from your computer. They built everything from full-size steam engines for use in collieries. You see the Jericho Highland engine there on the upper left, mine Lokis, such as the upper right for Lehigh Coal and Nav, and then at the bottom, a Pennsylvania Coal Company compressed air locomotive. So rather than running on steam, this engine is essentially a giant tank for holding compressed air to operate the cylinders. In the Baldwin images, there tended to be a number of construction photos. So this is all the same mine motor going together, finished product there at the upper left, and a couple of in-progress views as well. And somewhat unusual for them to document in this level of detail. I think there were something like 15 images of this particular mine motor. So they were really pushing the sales during this time. You'll also note the backgrounds are blacked out for use in various publications. It's a solution that was applied to the negative themselves. Sometimes with the mine motors and other small industrial critters, they just have two guys in a big sheet that you can see at the edge of frame, which is kind of fun. And they also built electric Lokis. Believe the one on the left there was used by Reading Anthracite at Locust Summit. And as with Vulcan, would occasionally send people out to take pictures in the field. There's a couple of Baldwins working a breaker. One of the neater collections that came in right as I was winding down my time at the Railroad Museum initially came from a guy by the name of Joe Zogby, and it's Lehigh Valley Railroad record photographs from their Manoy and Hazleton division out of the corporate offices there in Hazleton. But in addition to showing all sorts of railroad views of new construction and accidents, it also documents mining activities on the same branch. So there we have a view of the Drifton Breaker, Shenandoah's Kelly Run Colliery there at the bottom, and one of my favorite images, moving the Roan Junction station from one place to another, and they had to fit it underneath the Oneida Breaker. And that one stuck with me in the 6 years since I've been there. There are also a lot of photos showing ancillary activities. In the upper left is the inside of a thawing shed to heat the coal so that it could come out of the hoppers when it was frozen in winter. On the right there, you can see anthracite separators in the breaker at Latimer, as well as loading coal into a hopper car in Coiningham. The nice thing about these photos is they are generally all captioned and dated. These are also all available online. They're all scanned in. And in addition to mining facilities, they also show how the mines impacted the railroad. There's a coal storage ground adjacent to the right-of-way in the upper left. A subsidence that affected the right-of-way on the right. You can see the Lehigh Valley hopper cars there being used to dump material to fill in the subsidence to rebuild the right-of-way. There are also some good maps in there. The one here at the bottom shows the location of every colliery on the division in 1921. In addition to showing the corporate side of mining, it also documents a lot of the communities in the along the M&H division. We have a patch house there in the upper left, a parade for the Liberty Loan in Hazleton in the upper right. And then at the bottom is a photo from a different collection showing Concrete City. That's from a Lackawanna company photograph. So there's my contact information. I hope to have more in the future. We're building, as well as the contact information for Lauren, who is my replacement at the Railroad Museum in Strasbourg.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Nick. You guys are growing at an alarming rate considering how new you are. That's pretty impressive.
I have a lot of job security, and Mike Korb is always on the lookout to make my job even more secure.
Oh, yes. We have quite a few questions in the chat from Mike for all of us for later on. So, as you may imagine. So shout out to Mike. Good to see you again. David, I'm going to turn things over to you now.
Again, we'll zip through some of this stuff. This is the mural behind the circulation desk from 1969, not actually original to the building, but an example of a lot of the art that we have here. As I said, it's behind our circulation desk. So this is what it actually looks like in the real world. But we have some curious art. This particular item from the Sordoni collection that it occurred to me today, I think, although we're a Catholic institution where crucifixes are pervasive, this is actually the only one in our building. But it's quite an interesting piece. People have different interpretations of what one should make of it, but it's a real pick with a miner attached to it. We have a large collection of paintings by authors in the Wyoming Valley, Edward Wells. Some of them were damaged in the flood. Many of them, because so much of the art's related to the coal industry, we have a lot of pictures of collieries, breakers, all kinds of things. This picture, also by the person who did the mural, was the donor of the collection. And this is another example. This is something that Nicola did himself. The Madonna of the breaker. I'm not gonna talk about these much, but significant things here. First research collection we have is the Dan Flood collection. Has about 600 linear feet of items. It's not open to the public, only for people doing research of some sort. Although for people who can't get in, if they have a need they can articulate, we can try to find things for them. You can see a variety of things here. If you're as old as I am, you can remember when he did weekly reports from Washington on Fridays around the time now they would do the local news in like the 7:45 slot on TV. We have all those things in very old formats. The most interesting stuff in his collection, to my mind, is the stuff that's least available for people to have. If you look at the 1969 Federal Coal Mine Health and Safety Act, a very significant transformational piece of legislation for mines, all the inspections, all the things important for working mines. Things most important in terms of the collection is the last thing that mentioned, miners disabled by black lung provided benefits in this Act of 69. Important for a couple of reasons. One, because there were 10 times as many disabled miners as there were working miners by 1969. Of course, this is where all the money went. If you look at all the things here and say, well, how much would this cost? How much would that cost? Very significant expenditure of funds to get this bill envisioned by Dan Flood. And in terms of the collection, I think the really interesting, touching things, and the things that aren't in the congressional record or in other public forum, are things like this letter here, which is hard for you to see, but I'll read it, a little bit of it. Mr. Flood, I know this is an imposition on my part, but I really don't know what to do. My husband passed away in February. So it goes on, it explains that for months afterwards, she got a death benefit, but all the other benefits came in his name, her husband's name. As such, it was impossible for her to cash them. And 9 months later, she sent a message to Dan Flood. As is typically the case in these things, we have the letter, we have something he sends back to her, we have something that's written under the name of a fairly high-level official in Washington who solves the problem for them very quickly. Lots of things related to black lung, some of them related to the, if you know the Safety Act, there were amendments along the way. They realized it didn't account for widows. It didn't account for people who could not prove they had black lung by x-rays. And in the original act, x-rays were the sole criterion for being eligible. So it's a lot of people writing to him explaining their particular problem had an impact on getting the law changed. It was amended 5 different times after it was passed. Again, these are things where we're still a little wary about making them publicly available. When we got them in the 90s, they were only 20 years old. Now they're 20 more years old, 30 more years old, but they're still personal letters about people. Again, sometimes have health information, sometimes just information that wasn't meant to be public. So we're careful about how we make them available. Just an example of one of the paintings in the collection. It has those highlightings in it because our building's 24/7 and so are our lights. So when amateurs take pictures, that's what they look like. The Corson collection is a significant collection that started out here, oral history for miners and music, including the album, the Library of Congress album that's referenced here on the left. All of the Corson materials went to the Archive of Folk Culture at the Library of Congress, but when we got back digitized versions of all the interviews and paper transcripts, copies of the paper. So we still have a lot of the materials. We're not the official holders of record now, but Judy Tierney, one of our librarians, was the one who put together all the information to find out exactly what we had. And I think except for the film reel, everything that the Folk Culture Archive has, we also have too. Another, in this case, a woodcut that's in my office. Just want to mention real quickly, we don't have in the building, but we have on campus a significant number of the breaker paintings that Sue Hand did. It's a wonderful collection in Kings on the Square. And of course, now a bunch of it is at College Misericordia, even as we speak. I strongly recommend that people get to see that if they can. One other thing I want to show very quickly, I have to go out of this. Thanks to, let's see, I have to share the screen again. I have to open something else up here, just take a second. Can you see that?
Not yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's sharing either. Well, let me explain, because you don't really have to see it, but we have in our possession here a digital version of the Anthracite Museum map that's so striking and so full of information. I was at Marywood before I was at King's. The university, in collaboration with the museum, had a digital version of the map made. My contribution was not an intellectual one. I was the one that, after it was packed up, I drove it down to Philadelphia, and I at the Conservation Center, and brought it back. But it's a wonderful resource full of information. And what we would like to have people consider doing, if they want to create their own GIS maps with it, you could certainly have layers. It would be an interesting project for somebody to say, take the 1885 geological survey map and create a layer of, say, downtown Wilkes-Barre in 1885, when, for instance, the Oosterhout Free Library was in the old Presbyterian Church as its temporary quarters. And of course, it's still there. It's temporary quarters. It's been there 150 years now. But all kinds of information embedded in that. And you don't have to go up and stand in front of it. You can, thanks to John's cooperation, anybody can come in and look at that. We can't make copies freely for everybody, in part because it's huge files. But we welcome people who want to talk to us about GIS-related, geographic information system products related to it. And let me stop there.
All right. Well, thank you, David. Always good to see what our friends in the two colleges are doing. So now I will jump in last and least, because we are a much more general collection than everyone else that you've seen today. If that wants to start the slideshow, we'll be in business. We have a larger collection, but it's only one small part. Anthracite is only one small part. We are not as focused as all my colleagues that you heard speak today. So because of that, I'm just going to hit on a few general things we have, what types of things you could see when you come in. And because so much of the researchers that come in, the vast majority that come in or research us through email or snail mail, it's genealogy. So this is what we have that would help out the best with your genealogy. So we'll start with some of our policies. If you want to come in the library and the museum, we are open during everything that's going on, but we're open by appointment. So call us, email us, we'll get you set up. Our Bishop Memorial Library obviously contains the paper artifacts, whereas our museum has the 3D items. The fee for the day is $5 if you're not a member of the society. It's free if you are a member, and that covers both you and a guest. And if you want to hit both in one day, we're literally $2 apart. We have our museum, then you have the Westmoreland Club, then you have our library. So you could hit both in one day and you'll be good for the $5. The vast majority of our items are available to be copied. A plain Jane Xerox copy is 25 cents, whereas if you have a camera or a phone or anything, if you do non-flash photography, you could do that as well. We have a lot of researchers that want both. They want a digital copy and a paper copy. We could certainly hook you up with that. Some things are a little bit bigger, or maybe there's some copyright questions or something. So we can't just make straight copies of them, but usually we can make a reproduction either on site or we can send it somewhere else to get fixed. Likewise, we do research to the mail, we do research to the email. You go on our website, LuzeRneHistory.org, and you go under research. There's a list of more complete list of our resources, not just anthracite, as well as the forms you have. So the first place basically anybody starts when they come in is what we call the vertical file. And it's a huge collection that we still update fairly regularly to this day of newspaper articles, periodical clippings, scans, from mostly local, but all over the world. We actually have a few researchers that live in California and Texas and a few places throughout the country that they just clip obituaries for people that live here and they send them in. So basically any local topic you could think of, we have a vertical file on it. Now I took a picture because anthracite is far and away the biggest single topic in our collection. We have a whole line, anybody that's ever been in our reading room, we have a whole ring of filing cabinets. And anthracite is the only topic that has its own drawer, and it actually has two. So that just gives you an idea of the files, big, small, and indifferent. There's files on individual mines, there's files on individual collieries, companies, major accidents and disasters, and then there's just a lot of general anthracite and mining related topics. Some of them go back from the Civil War era all the way up to some from the early present day, talking about Huber and the restoration and things like that. Likewise, we have tons and tons and tons of newspapers themselves on microfilm rather. So you can go back and you could look at the originals. You can also print them off and we can make copies of them. And we've actually partnered with newspapers.com. So if you have a newspapers.com account, our entire newspaper collection on microfilm is available digitally on newspapers.com. We also have a library. We have numerous books on the collection here on anthracite. I've just picked out a couple to give you an idea. So, the first one is Benjamin Selesky's The Susquehanna Collieries Company, Little Coal Company. It's a history specifically on Susquehanna collieries. Franklin Goen has The Coal Dealer's Companion. This is actually a period book. It's basically how to sell coal. It's like a salesman's guide for how to sell coal. And then Frank Davenport wrote the not vague at all titled Anthracite Mining. And then I put this up because I'm reading this for our Jacob Sist exhibit. I saw that Nick had it up in his presentation as well. Philadelphia's First Fuel Crisis, Jacob Sist, and the Developing Market for Anthracite. So those are just four little examples of what you could see in our physical book library. We have literally hundreds more just on anthracite. The other biggest thing the public uses generally when they come in are the mining engineers reports, the reports of the Department of Mines from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This is half of one shelf because that's all I could get in my camera without it being too far away. We have 3 full shelves of these just over yonder as I'm talking to you, just off screen. And these are engineering reports. These are bureaucrats' reports. So they're pretty dry and they're basically just statistics, but they have accidents, they have injuries, fatalities, production numbers, tonnage numbers, transportation, employment figures, payroll figures, tax figures. If you're looking for the nuts and bolts and you need the bare numbers, they're here. And some of them do talk about the injuries and fatalities, and they report on specific disasters of major importance. The problem with these, I found, is they're very similar to the record almanacs from this era in that some years cover more than others, some years cover less. There's a general outline that they all kind of follow, but some are vaguer than others, and there doesn't really seem to be a rhyme or reason why. We have almost 70,000 photographs total in our collection. Now, obviously, that is not entirely anthracite related, but we do have quite a few. We also have several thousand postcards as well. These are actually 3 that you can go online and see. We are slowly putting some of our photographs online. They're through our Omeka page. Easiest way to get there is if you just go to our website, go under exhibitions, there's a link for online exhibitions. We currently have 4. Anthracite is one of them. It's primarily photographs now, but we'll be working more on it actually starting this week with an intern. So we have postcards, we have more actual industrial photos, mines themselves, mining, the workers, and then we have some artistic renditions as well. And this is what you would all find in our photograph collection. The collection itself is searchable. It's not searchable on a computer. It's still a card catalog base because we are a historical society, but you can search through our photograph collection and through our postcard collection. We can pull them down for you. And if you like them, we can make reproductions as well. Quite a few people get photographs made, especially of mining. If you have miners in your family for relatives, a lot of people want to come in, get photographs to try to get an idea of what it was like, frame it, give themselves a little remembrance. So that's certainly something we can do. Much like everyone else this evening, we have lots and lots of maps. These are 2 that we actually just got back from being restored. You see the Wyoming and Lackawanna coal field, and then you see the Piston Company's Southern Division is over on the right. And these maps can literally be anything you would think of. They could show the veins of coal. They could show the physical locations of the mines. They could show what mine companies owned what land and were leasing it. They could be, somewhat three-dimensional on a 2D plane. They could be hand-drawn. They could be blueprints. They could be pencil sketches. We have pretty much everything and anything. These are somewhat searchable. Our librarian Amanda has a pretty good PowerPoint, listen to me, Excel spreadsheet set up that you can search and look for. These are a little bit large. These are more difficult to make reproductions of due to their size, but we are working on getting these digitized as well. Since we have a museum and a library, not everything is just paper. We have 3D objects as well. Here are 2 items from our anthracite collection, and these photographs are going to go up on our Omeka page starting this week as well. We have an intern that's going to be working on this, taking photos, labeling them, and putting them up. So if you can't make it down to the museum, make an appointment to see them in person. We're going to be putting them online slowly but surely. For years and years and years, we had a dedicated anthracite exhibit, and now we rotate our exhibits more often. We still keep some pieces up pretty much year round, like the Felgrate, for example, but now we rotate our collection much more frequently. So these won't be on display to the public all the time anymore, but they'll be on display online. And so basically this is a good segue into our Q&A section, because one of the questions that we got, I can just take a shot at answering, and it was, how do you get these collections? How do things come about? If you're looking for X or Y, where do we know where to go? And it's very hard because, as you heard from everyone today, these were private businesses, and they went out of business at all various times. Some of them reincorporated, some of them merged, and they just kept going. So unless an institution is specifically given an item or, is allowed to have them or make copies, they could literally end up anywhere. They could fall into private hands, and then, who knows? So that's why the vast majority of what we have is general. But here are some of the specific collections we have. From the Clear Springs Coal Company in West Pittston, we have statements of their coal they mined from the red ash veins on the La Coal land. It's really nuts and bolts statistical stuff. The Cuttingham and Kidder Coal Properties Report from 1859 to 1909, basically 50 years of this company's just statistics, shareholder reports, workmen's records, that sort of thing. The Lehigh Coal Company, we have numerous letters and correspondence back and forth from the company and from board of directors. We have their land draughts. We have various memos and internal company listings for about a 20-year period from 1814 to 1834. We have some specific United Mine Workers dues booklets from 1912 and 1913 for this John Barneski. This is the kind of thing that a lot of people really want. My grandfather was a miner. My great-grandfather was a miner. Do you have his pay stubs? Do you have his dues books? You can come in and take a look at our collection, but unless someone, most likely from the family, didn't give it to us, we're probably not going to have it. But in certain cases, we do. So it's always worth a shot to come in and look. And then the Lehigh and Wilkes-Barre Coal Company, we have 2 whole payroll books from the Honeybrook division for most of the year of 1915. We're missing a little bit of the summer there. And this is just 4 of several specific collections. For photographs, for instance, we have a Kingston Coal Company photograph collection. We have a Glen Alden Coal Company photograph collection, and they're much more specific just to those companies, and they are set up to be searched, specifically for those. So that's my little bit, and we can open it up to the Q&A. And I know what we could start with, because we've gotten several questions all on roughly the same topic, but it's a very good one. So we're just going to merge them all together. Gentlemen, I had mentioned our Omeka page and our website and a few other things, but gentlemen, what are your plans going forward for digitization, and where will they be located, and roughly what's the timeline on it? I mean, no pressure. It's a minor little question, but inquiring minds want to know.
Well, fortunately, we've got a decently resourced organization. As I mentioned, we just signed a contract for a digital asset management system. So hopefully sometime later this year, we'll slowly be rolling out things onto that. But it'll be a mix of steel and mining and railroading and all sorts of other industrial stuff. So I can't guarantee mining stuff will be made available remotely anytime in the near future, but it's certainly on the list. And fortunately, some of it is already digitized, so that will hopefully make it easier. But otherwise, you need to make an appointment to come in. We're in downtown Bethlehem on 4th Street, and we also just bought a building, so renovations and all that fun stuff will make access to certain collections a little difficult for the next couple of years.
It's always fun when you have people working around the collections, isn't it?
Always.
John, David, you want to jump in there?
I could jump in, Mark. Yeah, so for our three-dimensional artifacts, we do have, I think I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, a program called Argus, which is available through the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission's website. So if you want to search the Anthracite Heritage Museum collections, Eckley Miners Village collection, or any other PHMC sites collections, you can go onto the Pennsylvania Historical Museum website, and then there's a tab called Museum Collections, and you can search two ways. You can search by artifact. So if you're looking for picks or shovels, you can just type in pick or shovel, and every pick and shovel that's entered into the database should appear. There's usually a description, and most of the time there's a photograph of that object as well. You can also search by individual museum. So if you wanted to see what we have so far entered into that database, you can just kind of click under Museum Collection and then type in Anthracite Heritage Museum, and everything that we have entered for the public to view should be available. In terms of archival collections, there's been some discussion. So the State Archives is a part of the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission, and the Anthracite Heritage Museum and other sites and museums are in a different bureau. So right now we're trying to coordinate our efforts to kind of team up and start bringing things online. I don't have a timetable for that. So as just like Nick said, for now, there is that vision in the future, but for now, pretty much the only way to see our collections is to actually make an appointment and come in. Sometimes I scan things and make a Facebook post with some of our photos and maps and things like that. So that's another way too.
Yes, shout out. Basically, any type of nonprofit going has a Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, some form of social media. So definitely, if there's a specific institution that you're a fan of, be sure to check it out. I mean, I know myself and Allie and Amanda, we often throw things on Facebook and Instagram. John has a good one for the Anthracite Museum. So if there's one specific institution you like, check out their social medias, because a lot of times you might hit something and then you could go from there. Even then, if it's just a post saying that they have something, then that could start you on your journey.
For us, the course and stuff, of course, is already digitized. The flood stuff, most of the things are either part of the public record now, other places through Federal Depository, or the kind of things I talked about, the letters that we're not really ready to make them available to the whole world. But going back to John's map, probably what I will do is I will geotag a lot of the things in Wilkes-Barre and try to convince people to add GIS layers to the map. If you haven't worked with Geographic Information System before, you build different layers of content that you can mix and match out together. So if you want to have the kinds of things that would be on the 1885 survey map, and you wanted to have a map of Wilkes-Barre in 1885, or go to the Pennsylvania Mine Atlas and have a layer that's really the mine maps from 50 years later, and compare those things. It's a very labor intensive, but it's a way to make things comprehensible graphically, which are hard to imagine sometimes if you can't, it is that one picture's worth 1,000 words.
Definitely. So we have a question here about national perspective works of, either nonfiction or fiction, movies, documentary, plays, books. There's been quite a few books written about the industry in various ways, a lot of good biographies, a lot of good summaries of different specific events, like the 1902 strike. The only type of really more dramatic thing I can think of off the top of my head is the Molly Maguire's movie with Sean Connery on the national level. I don't know if there's anything else I'm missing. Gentlemen, jump in if there is, but that's the only thing I can think of off the top of my head immediately. And that's older now. It's getting up there. This is a good one for everyone. If someone has items, how do they donate to your collection? How do they get in contact with you?
Give me a call or shoot me an email. It's the easiest way to do it. Email tends to be easier, especially because you can share pictures and that sort of thing. But I'm happy to talk with anyone who's got some stuff they're looking for a home for.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Mark.
No, go ahead, John.
Yeah, that's pretty much the same for me. If anybody wants to donate to the Anthracite Heritage Museum or Eckley Miners Village, you can just call me. I'm usually at the Anthracite Heritage Museum, not Eckley Miners Village, but you can call the museum. And I'll give you the number now, 570-963-4804. And you can just email me as well. And my email is jfielding, FIELDING, the @pa.gov.
For us, it's pretty much the same thing. Call us, email us. The phone number here, 570-823-6244. I'm extension 3. Amanda, our librarian, is extension 2. Leave us a message. Let us know what you have, and we can talk about it. I will say, if you have pictures, even if they're just cell phone pictures, just so we can get an idea of the scale and quantity, that always helps, because with the possible exception of Nick, because he's got a new building, but I'm pretty confident in saying all of us need and / want more space. You will never hear of a museum or library that doesn't want more space. So we have to keep these things in consideration. But definitely, if you have something that you think may have interest, please reach out. We will definitely take a look at it.
Plenty of room in Bethlehem right now.
Mark that down. Save this for 5 years later when we're doing the 2027 Anthracite Heritage Month event. And I guess we have time for one more. This is a pretty good one. Just curious, how are your collections protected from loss? Security, fire systems, HVAC, and do you have electronic copies somewhere? Yeah, we have at least here for the LCHS, we have a security system. We have climate control in the different buildings that allow it. Obviously, the historic houses, you can't really, stuff central air in. And we do actually do several electronic backups, both to the cloud and to the to external hard drives. Now, obviously, this isn't our entire collection. We have over 250,000 items. But as we are digitizing things, as we are indexing things, as we are keeping our records, all of those, as they get added, go both to the cloud and to an external hard drive. So there are electronic backups places, and in some cases, multiple. All right. Well, I thank you all. It is almost 8:30. It has been a great night. I want to thank David, John, Nick, and for joining us, and Bob for putting this on again. We've been doing Anthracite Heritage Month every year since I've been here. I think it's great and can't wait to keep doing it again. So thank you all for joining us. Good night. This will be on our YouTube channel. And if any of you gentlemen want the copy, we'll definitely give it to you. And it's going to be on PCN as well. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mark, and thanks to the panelists.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.